Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, Wooden Railway Adventures, Episode 203, Furious George. One night on the island of Sodor, George was slowly making his way to his shed when he saw the horrid lorries and Sailor John working at the sawmill. "I didn't know they were employed here," said George. "Must have gotten stuck with the extra late shift or something." But George soon noticed that Sailor John was working quickly, and the lorries were waiting anxiously with their truck beds full. "That's the last of the logs," he whispered. "Now get out of here before somebody sees us. Move it!" And the lorries quickly sped away. George was so surprised at their speed that when he looked back at the sawmill, Sailor John had vanished. "What's going on here?" asked George. "That didn't seem right at all. Why were they in such a hurry to get out of here?" But George was too tired to investigate any further and rolled slowly away into the night. The next day, the grumpy steamroller was up to nothing as usual and decided to stop by Elsbridge Station to listen in on the latest gossip. "Did you hear about the sawmill?" asked Toby. "Somebody stole the logs from the dumping depot last night." "That's terrible," replied Percy. "Those logs aren't just for the taking. Who would do such a thing?" Just then, George remembered what he had seen the previous evening. "I'll tell you who did it," he said. "It was Sailor John and those horrid lorries. They worked quickly and quietly and were gone before anybody had noticed." "Oh, and what's your evidence?" asked Percy. "I don't need any evidence," stammered George. "I was there last night and saw them do the whole thing." "So why didn't you stop them?" asked Toby. It was already in progress when I rolled up, you see. Now would you like for me to tell you more so that this mystery can be solved?" But Toby and Percy weren't convinced. "You're always making stuff up," they said. "This is probably another one of your lies or something." And they both puffed away. George was feeling rather insulted. "They completely rebuffed me. Why wouldn't they believe me? I mean, I know I'm a shady character from time to time, but I haven't caused any trouble recently. And I'm trying to help them, you know. Oh well, it's their loss if they don't want to listen to me. I'll find somebody else who will." But no matter where George went that day, none of the engines would believe him. "It sounds true," said Duck, "but you've been known to make things up before." Yes, we've been over that," said George hastily. "Now will you please just tell Sir Topham Hatt what I've said?" "We don't want to get into trouble if you happen to be wrong," said Gordon. "Besides, I'm a proud express engine. I don't have time to sit and gossip with the likes of you." "I suppose I should be going as well," added Duck. "Nice try, George." George's eagerness to help the engines had quickly turned to anger. That night he went back to the sawmill to see if Sailor John and the lorries would return. Eventually, 2 of the lorries did show up. "Looks like we'll have to come back another time," said Lorry 1. "I was hoping they would have brought in more timber today, but it looks like they didn't." "We'll be fine," added Lorry 3. "All those logs we stole last night can be cut up into plenty of crates for Sailor John's dynamite. Now let's just get out of here and head to the quarry." George smiled. He was definitely onto something, and now he only had to get someone to listen. The following morning he rolled right up to Knapford Station and stopped on the tracks. "George, what are you doing?" asked Thomas. "You're going to bend the rails with your big heavy roller." "I'm not going anywhere until Sir Topham Hatt comes and talks to me," he said stubbornly. "I have some important news to share with him. That is, if he's interested." But the engines weren't amused. Eventually, Hank puffed forward and pushed George right off the rail so that the trains could leave the station. "How disrespectful," he spluttered. "The one time I actually want to help these miserable engines, they completely ignore me. Well, I'll show them what George the Steamroller is really capable of doing." That afternoon, George made his way to the Sodor China Clay Works, where the lorries were busy delivering more dynamite. "I'd like to speak with Sailor John," he said firmly. The lorries looked at each other and laughed. "He's not around," laughed Lorry 2. "Can we take a message?" "Yes, actually, you can. Tell him that I saw 3 of his lorries stealing logs from the sawmill, and that if he doesn't want me to go around telling the whole railway about it, he better speak to me in person." The lorries' faces grew serious. "You saw that?" they gasped. "Oh, yes, I did. And I've seen plenty more, too. Plenty more, I say. But don't make me reveal it. Just let me talk to Sailor John and we can come to an agreement." The lorries looked nervously at each other. "Fine," said Lorry 3. "He'll meet you here tonight." "And don't tell nobody about this," added Lorry 2. George was finally feeling rather pleased with himself. "I might actually get an audience for once," he chuckled. That night, George sat by himself in the empty quarry. He was beginning to think that nobody would show up, until Bulgy eventually rolled in and Sailor John stepped out. "Haven't seen you in a while," said George to Bulgy. "You look like a brand new bus." "Sailor John fixed me up," he replied. "Maybe he can do the same to you." "I hear you've been spying on me," interrupted Sailor John. "That's a rather measly thing to do, wouldn't you say?" "I'm a steamroller," countered George. "I do measly things for a living." "Now what do you want?" asked Sailor John. "Money? Gems? Treasure? Because I have it all." "Relax, I'm on the same side as you. I don't like the engines and the engines don't like me. And Sir Topham Hatt disregards me as a grumpy, inconsiderate machine. Which is only half true, by the way. If you would just give me some valuable work, I'd be more than happy to keep my silence." A smile crept onto Sailor John's lips. "That's my kind of deal," he said. "Welcome to the crew, George. I'm guessing you're the type that likes to eavesdrop on other conversations. Is that right? Because your careful listening and vast knowledge of this railway might come in handy one day. Just keep a low profile and I'll fix you up and make ya a really useful steamroller once again." George was beyond thrilled. "That's what those worthless engines get for ignoring me," he chuckled. "You've got a deal." "Excellent. If you have any questions, just stop by my place. Not the dynamite stand. I'm hardly ever there. Try the abandoned mine beside Ulfstead Castle." "Will do," said George. "Thanks for the opportunity, Sailor John." And Bulgy roared away. "Oh, this is fantastic," he said. "I finally have a real job, and Sailor John's going to repair me and make me look like a proper steamroller. And hey, ouch! Hey, I'm rolling here. Watch where you're going." "Sorry, George, but you can't be on the track in the middle of the night and not expect to get hit. I'll send for help at my next stop." "Why, you slimy little caterpillar," seethed George. "This is why railways are failing. You'll all be scrap one day, and with any luck, my perfectly paved roads will get the lorries to the quarry here and back faster than any engine could ever dream of. Oh yes, your time is up, silly steam engines. Roads are in, rails are out. Enjoy your final few moments, because you won't be lasting very much longer if I get things my way. Ho, you'll be sorry for ignoring me. Very sorry indeed."